So recently I've seen a lot of people asking within the community, I don't know why it's a little new trend, maybe because of the hype for consoles in regards to Satisfactory, because as we know, a lot of people over the years, will this ever come to console? And as we know, at the end of 1.0 announcements, it got confirmed that we are getting it for console. It's come to my attention over this past month, and as of the other day, which I responded to someone in Discord, will Satisfactory be cross-platform between PC and console? And in my opinion, no. Maybe. If that makes sense. And we'll get to the no right now, and then we'll get to the maybe in a bit. So, the reason I don't think we're going to be able to do it is because on console, there's going to be something called a build limit or a complexity limit. And you might recognize the complexity limit due to Planet Coaster. Planet Coaster has one of them where you can, place objects here, make things look beautiful, decorative by placing multiple objects. And at the end of it, you can only build so much because of a complexity meter, because it will affect your performance the more and more and more you build. And it's going to be the same for Satisfactory. Even Satisfactory for PC has a build limit, but it's not implemented by the developers. It's actually implemented by the engine, which is Unreal Engine. We are currently on, I think, Unreal Engine 5.2 as of me recording this, which is the 3rd of March. And we have a build limit of, I think, 2.17 million UE objects. And take UE objects and remember that name, because what a UE object is, think of it as one puzzle piece. One puzzle piece is one token, which is one UE object, which means we can have 2.17 million items, placeables in the game. But not all objects you place into a game class as one UE object. So let's take a foundation, for example. When you place down one foundation, that's one UE object. Back in the day, a constructor used to be roughly around 4 UE objects. So that's 4 little puzzle pieces. And over the time, throughout the early access development stages, the developers kind of reduced the number of puzzle pieces, UE objects, that was associated with a certain buildable, which then they would then reduce it to 3, they reduced the constructor to 2, and then to 1, and so on and so forth. And it was very, very similar to that. So if you think about it, the more complex a building is, so let's say the quantum encoder, for example, which is new within Satisfactory 1.0, it's a big machine, it's got sparkly lights, it's got spinning things on it, it's going to have inputs, outputs, and it's going to have, different kind of things happening on it. And that will affect its UE object count. A particle accelerator, you've got the big spinning lights on it, there's all these electrical shots, the sounds and all this kind of stuff, right? But it's more than likely with the build, not any audio, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong with that, but I don't think it is. And they'll have different variations of count. So when you place a small, the beams you can place, when you place a beam, if you was to place one as small as possible, which is, one little bit to another little bit, that classes as 1. If you put another one down, 2. That's why I have always recommended throughout my playthroughs, either on Twitch or the YouTube videos, to always place conveyor belts, pipes, train tracks, beams, anything that is a stretchable item, always place it at its maximum distance. The reason being is if you was to place a conveyor belt or any of them objects that I said in small increments, every time you let go and it places, that classes as one UE object. That's not including the legs that are supporting the conveyor belt, for example, as well. So every time you place a train track and you place it one foundation length, that's one object. You place it another one foundation length, it's not, you can't do it one foundation's length because it goes up to a maximum of 1.5 foundations before someone mentions in the comments. So let's go, for example, 2 foundations length, that's one object. 2 foundations, but then somebody could go 1 and go to 4, that's gonna be 1. So that's why, the conveyor belts and the tracks, they all have a certain length, and that is to accompany for the UE objects and whatnot. And again, constructors, assemblers, they all have a different number assigned to them. So every time, if I was to place 10 constructors back in the day, it would have been, if they still have the 4 counts of UE objects, it would have been 40 numbers, right? It would have been 40 UE objects. And over time, as we know, the more and more you put down, the more complex your factories get put down. Every time you put a street light in, every time you put barriers, pillars, windows, everything to make things look nice, that number is going to stack and stack and stack and stack and stack and stack. And it's only got more crazy ever since blueprints got introduced, because with blueprints, when you place, and let's say you make a blueprint and it had, you know, 50,000 UE object count, for example, that's a lot. But every time you place one of them down, it's going to be 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 50,000. And you're going to be building it a lot quicker, even though it's going to be the same, even if you place everything individually. So the reason I'm saying this is the more UE objects that get added, the less performance. And as we know, consoles are still not in that state where they can run the PC performance, right? That's why PCs don't have these caps, because you might have a high-end PC and you're able to run big. Like I'm currently running at 180 FPS right now in my save, where somebody with a low-end PC might only run at 60. If somebody on console picks up my save, it might only run at 30 FPS. So, you know, that's still under the build limit, but it's just not going to be, you know, a good experience for some players. It might be fine for others, but might not be for others. So this is the reason I think it's not going to be compatible. And this is why we have these build limits. So I'm just going to show you this right here, and it kind of shows you some of the reasons why we have these build limits. So reasons for build limits: performance, a large number of objects constrain games per processing power, leading to lag, stuttering, or crashes, especially on older or less powerful hardware, right? Technical limitations. Some game engines or programming structures may have inherent limitations on the number of entities they can handle. Balance. Build limits can be used to create a sense of challenge or progression, preventing players from overwhelming the game world with excessive structures, right? Save file size. Excessive building can lead to large save files, which can take up a lot of storage space and slow down loading times. This one was a big thing in Satisfactory also, even for PC players. If you take, for example, my Season 2 playthrough before Satisfactory Update 1.0 on the 10th of September last year, 2024, for those watching in 2026 or 2029, who knows? It used to take around 55 to just over a minute for my save to autosave. So every time there was an autosave, every 15 minutes, let's say that we set that as the timer, it would take a minute and a half, take a minute, just over a minute. Some people it took 5 minutes, some people it took 10, depending on how big your save was and how many items was in your save. And it wasn't until 1.0 where they introduced a new optimization with saves that reduced that to about 1 second. So I went from 1 minute to 1 second with just the patch, right? So obviously more development, more process, all that kind of stuff, it would help with optimization and all this kind of stuff. So examples of build limits. No Man's Sky has a build limit. I think 3,000 items, is it? I'm pretty sure it has got an item of 3,000. Has a limit on the number of base components that can be uploaded, and limit on the number of objects per save, right? Satisfactory. While there is a vertical limit for building, there is no hard limit on the number of objects, right? But excessive building can still cause performance issues. The engine does have a build limit, so it is 2.17 million. Again, somebody will let me know in the comments. Minecraft has a height limit. Medieval Dynasty has a limit of number of buildings, right? Number of buildings and a player can place in the city, which can be increased by completing quests. Has a point system for building, which is Nightingale, where more complex objects cost more points, very similar to a constructor, to a particle accelerator, blah 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 blah. You can have a limit of 30,000 points per realm. Wildfire Games has build limits for specific types of buildings, such as scout towers and fortresses. That doesn't really matter. So overcoming build limits. Players can learn to build more efficiently and compactly to maximize their space and resources. So this is something I could mention as well, is like, if your save right now is getting to an FPS where you're not feeling suitable, or you're not finding it more playable, you're finding it a bit discouraging, maybe go and have a look at your belts, your pipes, your rail networks, your beams you placed, and just see if you stretch them to the maximum distance, and you could go over that. Or maybe the next time you play a playthrough, stretch them out instead of creating small increments, because it will cost you performance because you're creating individual objects instead of one long object. Modding. Some games allows players to modify build limits through mods, but this can sometimes lead to instability, and this is why, you know, if you're using mods in Satisfactory, why Satisfactory does not officially support mods, right? They allow mods to be used, but let's say, for example, if the game keeps crashing and I've got a mod installed, it's more than likely to the mod, and it's technically out of the devs' control. You're installing mods, your problem, not ours, you know? So, and whatnot. So, I just kind of wanted to show you that this is one of the main reasons why I don't think it's going to be possible. But there is a possibility, which is if the console version of Satisfactory does have a build limit, the option could be, if a PC player does join a console player, the PC player will get a hard limit on building as well, which means you'll be able to play with them, but you will also have a build limit or a complexity limit as well. Okay, I think that is a possibility also. So you're able to you'll be able to play with them. It's just that you, as a PC player, will have a bit of a less experience than what you would if you was to play by yourself or play with other PC players. So it's not entirely impossible to do. So if that's something that they might implement, they might do that. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think Planet Coaster 2 does that, where you're able to, you know, share your save files and all this kind of stuff from PC to console, and it'll give you a warning sort of thing, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, that's kind of like my 2 cents on this whole matter. Kind of wanted to talk about this because I know it's going to come up at some point, maybe later down the year, so I can just kind of refer people to this video also. So yeah, at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be possible. And if it does be possible, it's more than likely due to a build limit. And you on PC will have a build limit as well if you go over to play with somebody and your friends that are on console. I don't think there'll be a problem with PlayStation going over to console, PlayStation going over to Xbox, or PC going to Epic, or Steam and Epic kind of thing like it is now. But yeah, that's kind of like my 2 little cents on it. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Do you think it's going to be possible? And if so, why? What's your reasoning? And I'll be looking forward to looking at some of your comments. And obviously, be kind to your fellow commenters. You know, we're all in the same bloody world. And as always, I appreciate you all. So let me know what you guys think. And as always, keep smiling, and I'll see you in another video. You're a weirdo, Bitzy. You're a weirdo. Yes, bone. Oh, I need to get that off F11 mode. Na 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 na.